The moment you realize that between 2015 to 2060, Islam in so-called Sub-Saharan Africa is projected to increase from 16% to 27%, almost double the number of people that believe it today, and that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the whole world, you begin to think furiously and know that before anyone else converts to this religion or chooses as an alternative spiritual path, they must be smart enough to do a thorough personal investigation about it. It is yet to apologize for slavery and colonization and occupation of part of Africa, so-called Middle East. We want to say, once enlightened of these facts that we have elaborated, including slavery, you will not easily buy into its emotional package of anti-Western rhetoric as propagated by the Brotherhood talk of the Nation of Islam and the appeals to black consciousness or black unity. Among all many proofs that you can have that Islam is a colonial and enslaving religion, as well as that it harbors anti-melanin dominant human European system, we want to share one important angle, one fact you must study about the Quran. Muslims, both black and white, believe sincerely that the Quran is the literal word of God, whom they call Allah. If, however, we were to find even one little verse or chapter or doctrine that was uttered before the birth of the prophet or before the Quran, we are bound by the law of common sense to reject the whole book and consider it as an extension of that older teaching that we find the teaching that we are pointing to. The fact that it is not inspired must be independently verified by millions of melanin-dominant human being converts. The Quran itself, in over 80 verses, proclaims that Allah revealed the Holy Bible, the Torah, the Psalms and Prophets, in other words, the Old Testament, and the Gospel of Jesus, the New Testament. So before we go anywhere, the Quran itself confirms that there are other holy books that came before it, including the ones that are listed in over 80 verses. So the question is, what's wrong with those old books? If you think or believe that Islam is a true revealed religion, and you read the Quran and believe it, and then go on to think that it is inspired in your thinking and in your way of life, you have to answer, how is it inspired and authentic, since it itself repeats the words or written doctrines that are found in older holy books by its own confession? Think about this very seriously. Therefore, it is very straightforward and clear that you have to return to the older original or doctrines where it was borrowed from, or where these books borrowed from. This source for these other books that the Quran used as its principal resource or its inspiration, whether it's Jewish sources, we need the proof about that. Islamic beliefs about Allah. Muslims believe that Allah inspired the holy books mentioned in the Quran. So what difference is there between these holy books and the Quran? None at all. Nothing is really new in the Quran. It's new for those that read the Quran without reading elsewhere. Here is what Ignaz Goldziha, a scholar, wrote. He said, the most important stages in Islam's history were characterized by the assimilation of foreign influences. Its founder, Muhammad, did not proclaim new ideas. He did not enrich earlier conceptions of man's relation to the transcendental and infinite. The Arab prophet's message was an eclectic composite of religious ideas and regulations. The ideas were suggested to him by contacts which had steered him deeply with Jewish, Christian, and other elements. Very, very straightforward. So here we now want to show some of the books you must know as the source of the many chapters that you find in the Quran. On top of the list that I want to share is the Talmud. The Talmud, the word distilled Talmud, means to study, to learn, to fulfill the commandment of the Torah by way of Torah study and practice. The Talmud is a voluminous library of books. You have to study it to its end, and you may not finish to study. There's a lot of stuff in the Talmud. Then you got the Mishnah, the Gemara, then the Zohar. So these are the sources which have scriptures, oral folklore that you find in the Quran. And we can also point to the book of Zoroaster, Hinduism, and many other sources. Now, when we say the Gemara, we are looking into the commentary on the Mishnah. And the Mishnah forms the second part of the Talmud. The Zohar is the chief text of the Kabbalah, in which you can then extend the Sufism that you find practiced by those that fall under the category of Islam. All these books that we are listing here, the Jewish rabbinical books, have a lot to do with the allegorical and mystical interpretation of the Torah. We want to say a little bit about the Mishnah. The Mishnah is the first major written collection of Jewish oral traditions, which is known as the Oral Torah, which when we come to Southern Africa, it is Ubuntu or Ma'ati. So the Mishnah borrowed from Ubuntu and Ma'ati, but modified it heavily. So it is also the first major work of the rabbinic literature. From the Hebrew verb gama for Gemara, it means to finish or to complete. In other words, the component of the Talmud that comprises the analysis and commentary of the Mishnah, and it goes back to the oral explanation of the written Torah and other mysteries. Now, out of all these extra Torah traditions, Muhammad or Islam formalized their own traditions in a book that they call the Hadiths, similar with the Talmud, the Mishnah, and the Gemara, and the Zohar. So there's no difference in reality, because when you go to the Hadiths, they say that the importance of the Hadiths is that a perfect believer is one whose heart likes the teaching of Allah and his messenger. So the messenger is representing the rabbinical scholarship. That's straightforward, no two ways about such a proposition. Another definition of the Hadith here is that these are the sayings and the practices and habits of the Prophet collected by his companions, the same school of the rabbinical scholars. And then it goes on to say, after his death, the origins of stories were traced through the chain of narrators. Those that could be verified were considered weak, and the ones that were deemed authentic were carried over. They are the ones that now are used to interpret the surahs and the ayahs, or the verses and the chapters of the Quran. They claim then that the Quran is of eternal origins, as recorded in heaven, and that in heaven there is an original tablet of the authentic Quran, preserved and unadulterated, and preserved in heaven, as taught in Surah 85:21, Surah 6:19 and 97, is the source of Islam, or the source of the Quran, is merely preaching. It's not factual, cannot be proved, because we have already proved the source of the Quran from the books written and authenticated by other people who are not Muslims, or who were not Muslims. So here is the question that we need to ask. What will a believing or sympathetic Muslim do if he comes face to face, or if she comes face to face with this authentic earthly human origin of any part or of all the Quran? We will answer that for them here. What it means is that they will either deliberately continue to believe because they have faith and because they have no other alternative, because the other alternative is to go to the source where the Quran and the Hadith were borrowed from. The biggest effect you must study about the Quran is its inspiration. This is what we have already done. We have done part of the story of the study of its inspiration. And we have discovered, as you can see, that thus far, the Islam that we know and the Quran that we have been taught borrowed a lot from Jewish sects and Christianity as well as other sources. To say that it was inspired is to miss the mark and to fall into the ditch of faith and belief, or blind faith and blind belief. It was inspired, yes, but by Judaism. So, how was this inspiration done? There are many shocking narratives in the Quran. For example, what it says about Jesus is totally and completely wrong. It teaches that Mary, the mother of Jesus, is called the sister of Aaron in Surah 19:28-29. In Surah 19:28-29, and the daughter of Imran in Surah 66 verse 12. Imran is an Arabic form of the Hebrew Amram, who was the father of Aaron, Moses, and Miriam in Numbers 26 verse 59. This Miriam that is now being given to be the mother of Jesus in the Quran is said is Aaron's sister, and yet in Exodus 15 and 20 is Moses' sister. Therefore, not only the error here is that this Mary or Miriam, who is called a virgin, when she gave birth to Jesus, should have been about 1,500 years old. That's already an error. This has occupied the minds of the best minds of Muslims or Islam, and they have failed to correct it or to harmonize it. So before you convert or even consider Islam as an alternative spiritual path, you must be smart enough to personally investigate it. Here is an excellent source and resource that you should purchase and read. It's a powerful book and a powerful researched book by a former Muslim scholar. Why I Am Not a Muslim, the second edition, Ibn Warraq. We gave you this book sometime back in one of our videos, and we emphasize today that you need to have it in order to understand it, to understand Islam. There are many other serious scholars that have done a lot of research into the question of the authenticity of the Quran itself, and we are going to give some of their powerful inputs in this last part of this video. So when it comes to the issue of heaven, the Quran teaches and often refers to the 7 heavens in Surah 1746. These are the 7 heavens that it lists. There are so many videos, so many scholarly work by Muslims trying to prove that yes, this is scientific and so forth and so forth. But do you know what? The same notion about the 7 heavens predates this and is found in Chegiga 9:2 in the Talmud. In the Quran, hell is said to be 7 divisions or portals in Surah 15:44. In the Zohar, the book of light, the Jewish book of light, we find the same description. The notions go back to old Indo-Iranian sources in the Zoroaster, as well as in the Buddhist and Hindu religion. These 7 heaven and these 7 portals of hell are explained and taught in these scriptures as creations, as gates, as zones, as planetary bodies, like what is shown here in the Kabbalah. So when you tell somebody who has done their research and looked into this, and you say the Quran is inspired, and then you go into the scientific explanations as well as religious explanation about its 7 heavens, and correlate it with what science has discovered, and you then say it's inspired, we pick up scriptures, we pick up verses, we pick up books like this, what we are doing now, and you'll be stumped. In Exodus, we are taught about the 6 days of creation. Exodus 20 verse 11. You go to Surah 1:37. You find exactly the same explanation where it says, and indeed we created the heavens and the earth and all between them in 6 days. Now, here now is the proof text to show that this person who was writing this knew Exodus 20 verse 11, because he puts a twist in order to justify a doctrinal position within Islam. And the doctrinal position that they intend to justify by this twist is to have their right not to keep the Sabbath. Because then he says, and no fatigue touched Allah. When you go to Exodus 20:11 and you read the same verse, it says, wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it, for in that day he rested on the Sabbath day. So here they say he did not rest. No weariness touched us. This is just to be different from the Jews. There's a lot of polemical explanations and the genocide and the wars that were that took place between the Muslims at that time and the Jews in Arabia at that time, because the Jews refused to follow Muhammad and they told him, you are repeating our scriptures. So when you convert to Islam and you read such verses and you believe them, it means you are not really being smart or being scholarly. Then the areas of your focus when you are looking at this is that essentially you need to go back to the source that gave birth to the Torah, to the Tanakh, to the Bible, which is the New Testament, which is the Greek Testament. We have explained a lot about Serapis and Ptolemy, and now you have to look into Platonism, and then you have to come back now and say, all right, what is the source of all these books? It is Moses. And it is very clear that Moses was learned in ancient Hamit in Africa, and he was mighty in words and in deeds. So what did he learn? That's what all he learned that we have already explained. But here's what the Quran says. It says, we gave Moses the book, completing our favor to those who ought to do right, and explaining all things in detail, and guide and mercy, that they might believe in the meeting with their Lord. And this is a book which we have revealed as a blessing. So follow it and be righteous, that you may receive mercy. Now, this is what the book says, which they said was inspired, the New Testament. Moses was learned in Egypt, and he was mighty in words and in deeds. So which book do you go to? How do you know which book to go to? Because there is also another claim by Jesus who says, if you believe Moses, you would believe in me, for he wrote about me. That's Jesus. So where would you go to? And God called out to him from the bush, the burning bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am. He said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So who do you follow? So we are saying you go to where Moses learned these things. It's Kamit. So it is quite clear that a lot of the inspiration that you find in the Quran was inspired via the Talmud and many other books. According to Surah 446 and 5:8, when you lack water to purify yourself, you can use sand. It's acceptable. The Talmud tells the same story. The Talmud says, he who cleanses himself with sand has then done enough. Barakot 46. Prayers not too loud. That's what Surah says. In Barakot 31:2 makes the same point. Don't pray too loud. You also find in Matthew 6, same story. In Quran 2:228, it prescribes that menstruating women have 3-month periods before contracting a new marriage. Again, in the Mishnah, Jabamoth 4:10, it lays down the same law. Quran 5:32 is similar to the Talmud verse, which was written by men. Why? Because the Talmud obviously was not inspired. It was written by men, very brilliant men, very brilliant writers. We agree. It says, that is Quran 5:32, it says, whoever destroys a soul, it is considered as if he destroyed an entire world. And whoever saves a life, it is considered as if he saved an entire world. It's in Mishnah Sanhedrin 4:5. Jerusalem Talmud 4:9. The Babylonian Talmud Sanhedrin 37a. Same scripture, which you find in Quran 5:32. Exactly worded the same. No difference at all. Now, because of these researches that a lot of our brothers and sisters are doing all over the world, many former Muslims now say they have no religion. They no longer go to these religions because they now go to the source. Once you engage in research, you encounter the truth. And like many others, you will never be bound by these books, because then you will know thyself, and you will know that your body is the house of the divine. And if you know the divine, you know yourself. The summary of all this is the fact that you must study the Quran about the fact of whether it is inspired or not inspired, and whether these books are inspired or not inspired. But Islam, we know definitely from what we have presented here that it emerged from Judaism and Christianity, etc. And it does not proclaim any new idea or ideas or any new revelation or revelations, but regurgitates old ideas which were stolen via the Torah and many other books from Hamid. To be honest, this presentation has just scratched the surface. We shall share some more. If you are interested to learn more, as well as to contribute in cultural and spiritual congruence, so that together we can resolve current and every future challenge, get in touch with us on our email, join@marfado.com. This preacher Rabbi LM Dumizu Lugal Mjakanja Kunkenmskan saying, Tatenta Siabonga Enkos Asante Sana Edupe.